Well, thank you for joining me for another broadcast today. I'm going to follow up on just some questions that's been asked of me over the last little while. And because it seems like there are just a lot of couples that are going through some real difficult times in their marriages and just have, talked to us about that and some of the stresses involved. And especially with the last couple years where sometimes couples have been forced to have more time together at home when they're not used to it. They're either working from home or whatever. And so today I'm going to talk to you about some principles on building block. I call 10 building blocks for a healthy marriage. These are actually part of a work of a marriage symposium that we do. And it's just a section out of that particular symposium that I'd like to just share with you today because I think it is, I think it's important. And I hopefully it's going to be helpful to you because a lot of people have been blessed as we've done these symposiums. So to get right into it, the first one of the 10 things that I'm going to talk about is commitment. Now, it's important for us to have. Actually, I think I can read most of this without on my iPad. My notes are on my iPad, so I think I can probably read most of this without my glasses, which would probably be a good thing. So the first thing that you're going to need if you really want to have a healthy and happy marriage, let me just say this. Marty and I, my wife and I, have been married for over 58 years, and we had some very stressful first couple of years, and it took us a while for us to really learn what it meant to have a good and healthy relationship. Especially, it was rough before we became believers. Once we became believers, we really had to seek the Lord to get back reconnected with each other because we had gone and drifted. We had been living basically parallel lives. We had, broken a lot of our vows, like all of our marriage vows. And now that we were Christians, we needed to get back on track with the Lord. And so through the 58 years, we've learned a few things. We've not, I can't say we've got it perfect, but we're working on it still. And I don't think it's ever really completely perfect. I think we need to keep working on it for as long as we live. But anyway, the first one that I want us to look at is commitment, and that's really important. A commitment is the basis of a satisfying marriage. If we don't believe that we have a commitment with each other on that, then it's going to be very, very difficult for us to really build on anything else. Now, when I talk about commitment, it's more than just a promise to not go away. Some people, I remember hearing a joke here some time back where somebody responded to an RSVP for a wedding invitation, and they said, "Oh, I'm really sorry I can't make it. Maybe next time." I don't think we should be considering maybe next time. It's a commitment that is a promise, and it's more than a promise to not go away. It also simply means that I do is that when we say I do, it means I'm in it for the long run. I'm not just in it for a few short years or just until I get my itches tickled or whatever. No, I'm in it for the long run. Marriage is really 100% commitment on the part of both spouses. It's not a 50-50 deal. It's 100% deal on the side of both spouses. So this is the building block. This is number one building block is there has to be a commitment into this. Now the next one is I call it number two as a loving acceptance. Now the scripture tells us that we're to love the person we've married, but nowhere does the scripture say that we're to marry the person we love. Although I certainly would recommend that. But I do know that still in some cultures, two young people are brought together and they're kind of arranged in a marriage and they have to learn to love each other. But I don't think that's really the best, although in the scripture, that's the way it worked as well. But basically, we need to have a respect and we need to treat each other as equals because we're both in this at 100%. And because we're both God's children, our spouse is a child of God as well. I've often asked couples over the years when they were having difficulties, I've said to them, when you stand before the Lord and give an account for your life, God is going to ask you how you treated his daughter or how you treated his son. Because if you were abusive or just not giving her respect and honor, you got to remember she or he is also a child of God. They are joint heirs with you of an inheritance. And so the way that we respond to our spouse, we're going to give accountable to that as a child of God. So we need to also, in this loving acceptance, we need to accept our spouse without trying to change them. I sometimes have said that sometimes wives especially spend all their lives spending so much time trying to change your husbands, they never learn how to change themselves. And so that's unfortunate because really life is an ongoing changing experience. Every one of us are growing, we're learning, we're maturing, and as we mature, as we go forward, we need to understand that I like to put it this way: how do you know you're growing spiritually? Well, if those things which you thought were spiritual yesterday, you consider kind of normal today and a bit carnal tomorrow, you know you're growing. So anyway, we need to remember that we are to respect each other as God's children. Now we also need to understand something. All relationships that we have are based in either pain or pleasure. Now, unfortunately, over the years, we have talked to a lot of couples in which their relationship is nothing more than a source of pain. That's not the way it should be. Our relationships, our marriages should be a source of pleasure for each other. Pleasure just in being together, just enjoying each other's company, pleasure in just doing things together, pleasure in the bedroom, pleasure in all forms of life rather than pain. But if you look at it, I'm not going to go into that very much more today about that. All of our relationships are based on pain or pleasure, but it's necessary for us to remember that our spouse needs to be loved, to be needed, to be appreciated, just like we do. So number 3 is we need to we need to value our spouse's interests, their strengths, their weaknesses, and their boundaries. And as we do that, we need to treat each other as equals, because as we treat each other as equals, now then we can have mutual respect, we can have mutual appreciation, and we can have loyalty to each other. The other thing that we need to do is that even when we have differences, and differences are going to come up. In fact, one of these sections that we do on this marriage weekend is turning conflicts into growth opportunities. But you see, we are going to have differences, but it does, even if your spouse fails in some way and excuse me, fails in some way, there's nothing that's unforgivable. Forgiveness is a choice that we can make. And just like we would like to be forgiven if we do something, we for instance, we unknowingly or inadvertently, we say something that is an offense or say something that hurts our spouse. Be quick to forgive. Talk about it, bring it out to the open, and then forgive it. Treat each other as equals. That's number 3, respect. Number 4 is maturity and responsibility. Don't allow, it's a principle I have taught for many, many years, is don't allow other people's problem to become your problem. So if your spouse is having an issue where she's really troubled about something, yes, you need to be considerate. You need to be understanding. You need to be supportive. You need to be loving. But don't allow her problem really to become your problem. If she has some kind of a flaw that you see in that, don't pick up on that to where it's going to affect you and in the way that you respond to her or whatever. And this is a general principle that I've taught for many, many years in just relationships in general. Is I hear often somebody say, "Well, they made me do it, or they made me mad, or they made me angry." Well, why are you giving somebody else control of your emotions? That's the question. So the principle is don't allow other people's problems to become your problem. You've got enough problems of your own. I have enough problems of my own. I can't let somebody else's problem become my problem. And so we need to come into the understanding that responsibility, what it means is I am responsible for my own actions. In today's society, everybody wants privileges, but very few people are wanting responsibilities. And yet, in order for us to really have privilege, we need to also have responsibility. So if we're in a marriage relationship and we want the privileges of marriage for companionship, for sexual fulfillment, or just simply just being together, not having to be alone, that's a privilege. But also in that privilege is a responsibility. It's a responsibility to honor. It's a responsibility to respect. It's a responsibility to love. It's a responsibility to appreciate our spouse as also being a child of the living God. He said, "Well, what if my spouse isn't saved?" Well, she's just pre-Christian or he's just pre-Christian, and you need to love them anyway. You need to love them because who knows? Your love for them just might be what God uses to turn their hearts to himself. So we have that responsibility. I need to take responsibility for my faults and my weaknesses. I can't blame my spouse for that. If I've got a weakness in my personality, if I've got a weakness in a habit, I've got to take responsibility for that. And I need to say, "Oh, Lord, give me strength, give me grace, help me to really overcome those things." Because if I don't take responsibility for them, I'm always going to blame somebody else for my actions. And in blaming somebody else for my actions, I always am trying to defend what I did or did not do rather than taking responsibility for it. And it's absolutely essential that we take responsibility for our actions. If we don't do that, we're trying to gaslight other people and making them responsible for our actions. That's not really going to work. The scripture tells us in Acts chapter 26 and verse 2, Paul said he thinks himself happy. Do you know you can change your whole attitude just by the way you think? You can get up every morning, you say, "This is going to be a wonderful day." Or you can get up in the morning and says, "Oh no, it's Friday or it's Saturday or it's whatever the day is." Get up and be thankful for the day that you have. Very dear friend passed away just recently. You know, we were with him the night before, and the next morning he went to work and had a great day. It was perfectly no signs of any kind. He didn't come home that night. So, we just never know how much more time we have. So make it a good day. No matter what's going on around you, but especially make it a good day with your spouse. If you're married or if you're in some kind of a meaningful relationship, make it a good day for your spouse. All right, let's go on there. Now, number 5 is intimacy. In intimacy, this is more than just in sexual intimacy. This is just simply being transparent with each other. This simply means that, I'm being honest. I'm being transparent with you. I'm not holding a whole bunch of secrets. I'm not living a double life. I am simply who I am, and who I am is what you get every day. Yes, I might have some of my discouraging times. Yes, I may have my times when I'm just heavier, lots of things on my mind. But at the same time, share those with your spouse. Share it with each other so that you can build each other up. So you can be a companion, so you can really be a strength and an encouragement to each other. I am convinced that as time goes on, especially in the times that are ahead of us, I believe that it's absolutely going to be essential to have community. And what do I mean by community? I mean that we actually are together with the mutual purposes so we can help to strengthen, encourage each other. You put our arms around each other when necessary and just say, I'll be praying for you. I'm walking with you. I'm supporting you in that, because I believe we're going to have lots of challenges going forward in life in our societies today. So it's important that we have that. Now, the other thing that I think is really, really important that I've always encouraged, my wife and I do it ourselves, and that is that we have regular dates to nurture together time. Especially when children come around, find yourself a good babysitter. And you need to have regular dates where it's just the two of you. As a married couple, that's just the two of you can enjoy each other. It doesn't have to be a big, expensive time. Just a cheap date, whatever. Go shopping together. Just walk the mall, or go sit on a park bench, or go for a walk together, or just go out to some place to eat. It doesn't have to be something really expensive, but you need to do it regularly to have a connection time and a together time. Very, very important. Now, when you're having those kind of dates and those times together, It is also very important that you are not ashamed to show appropriate affection to each other. I'll never forget, yet many years ago, we were counseling a couple, and he was kind of a macho sort of a guy, and they were having some real serious troubles. The wife was feeling unsupported, and she was feeling somewhat abandoned by him because he very seldom gave any show of attention to her, and she was just really lonely. She just needed to have just some acknowledgement, and just needed to have some time to where she realized she was appreciated. So after our counseling time was over, I looked at him and I said, here's what I want you to do. And I'm going to sit here at my window and I'm going to watch you leave. I said, when you leave here, I want you to hold her hand and you walk out there into public holding her hand. Oh, I could tell that was a difficult one for him. But he did it because of his respect for me. He did it. And quite a few years later, now that they had a real breakthrough in their marriage and they were doing really, really well. And some years later, I kidded him about it. He said, yeah, Eli, he said, when you told me that was probably the hardest word I've ever received in my life, I said, it would have been easier for me if you'd have taken a 2x4 and beat me over the head rather than tell me to hold my wife's hand. But now he says, it's just a matter of doing it. So don't be afraid to, or ashamed to show some appropriate affection. And right along with that, learn each other's love languages. You know, each one of us have different love languages. Those love languages, there's 5 general categories. Hopefully I can remember them all. There's gifts, there's quality time, there's words of affirmation, there's, oh boy, here I go. Let me start over. There's gifts, there's words of affirmation, there's quality time, there is being a helper, that's not the right word. And oh boy, I'm embarrassed now because I can't think of those 5 and I've used them for years and years. Maybe I'll think about it a little bit later on. But learn each other's love languages. Not everybody has their love tank filled up just with the same thing. So it's really important to have that. I'm going to have to think about that as I'm talking here, see if I can remember those 5 love languages. Anyway, the next one, number 6, is conflict resolution. Now, essential for a happy marriage and a healthy marriage is that we need to disarm conflicts. Conflicts are going to happen. I don't care if you've been married 2 weeks or 20 years or like we ourselves, 58 years. Conflicts are going to happen, but you got to disarm those conflicts so that you can make them growth opportunities. Differences are going to happen, but they don't need to become conflicts. You and I can, my wife and I can disagree on something. You can disagree with your spouse, vice versa. But that doesn't have to be a game changer. It doesn't have to be a deal breaker. What it means is that because we respect each other, we honor each other, we'll take some time to think about it, to pray about it, and come back together to discuss it. For instance, if you've got something you need to make a decision on and you just can't agree to take some time apart, not discussing it, but just take some time and think it through, consider the options, pray about it, ask the Lord for direction, and then at another point in time, come back together and discuss it. You'll be surprised at how often when you do that, the resolution or the answer to that situation will just become very much obvious to you. That's what I'm trying to say. Boy, I'm having a hard time talking here today, but I hope you can follow me. Now, relationships do not cause conflict, but they bring out our issues. You see, people think, well, if I'm in a relationship, I'm going to be in conflict. No. The relationship is not what causes the conflict. The relationship brings out the issues that are causing the conflict. And that's the important thing to remember, because you see, every one of us have a fallen nature that we're dealing with. And every one of us has to deal with that fallen nature in order for us really to have the ability to grow emotionally, spiritually, and in our relationships with each other. So the relationships themselves, don't blame the relationship for the conflict. They only are bringing out the issue that's in yourself. Conflicts are a test of our wills. Differences are a matter of opinion. You see, you and your spouse can have a difference of opinion, but that doesn't mean it's a conflict. You simply have a difference of opinion. And that differences of opinion, you can talk through, you can share each other, you can share with the other person what your opinion is on something. You can discuss it, you can then let it rest, or you can come to a conclusion. A conflict is when it's a test of wills. You said no, I said what, and we have a test of wills in that way. That is not what marriage is about. Marriage is joining our wills, joining our personality, so that we can become a unit that is there, that has a well-being and health, and has actually, back I said a little while ago, pleasure, that is actually a source of pleasure for the both of us. That's what a marriage should be. That's what any relationship should be. Is it should be a relationship where pleasure is the goal. And like I said, I'm not just saying sexual pleasure. I'm saying just the pleasure of being together, just simply spending time together. Playing some games together, or sitting down and reading a book together. Go for a walk, whatever. Doing it together. So here we go. So it's the next one is money. Now, one of the three primary areas of marriage breakdowns is money. The other two are children and sex. And so when money is, there's this old saying that says, when money is tight, couples fight. And with today's society and the way that inflation has been going the last couple of years, um, everything is costing more. Groceries are costing more. Gas prices are crazy. Everything you want to buy is costing more today. And so it means that we need to work together, have us being a mutual steward of whatever God's provision is for you. You say, well, I'm not really a Christian. I just do my own thing. Whatever funds are available to you, you still need to be a steward of what has been provided for you. If you just recklessly spend without any hope for tomorrow, tomorrow's going to come one day and it's going to be a rainy day, so to speak, and you're not going to have what you need to carry you through that particular day. So we need to be respectful and be a proper steward of whatever the Lord has provided for us. Now, I recommend personally joint bank accounts. Now, there are circumstances where that is not really feasible. Sometimes, especially when there has been a divorce or there has been a death of a spouse and there's a remarriage that takes place. Sometimes because of just a lot of logistics, you need to keep parallel accounts and have transparency with that. But generally speaking, I recommend a joint accounts because it gives us an opportunity of trusting. That's another level of trusting each other, where we trust each other with our lives. We trust each other with our resources. We trust each other with our finances. We trust each other in every aspect of our life. And this is really, really important if you're going to have something that's solid and healthy in relationship. I also recommend that you have a slush fund. What do I mean by slush fund? I mean, it's this amount of money that you agree upon based on your budget and your earning capabilities, that you can give liberty to your spouse to spend X number of dollars. Let's just, for sake of a reference point, let's say $100. So you give your spouse gives you give them the liberty, so to speak. You can spend $100 for whatever. If you want to buy chewing gum, I don't care what no discretion, no accountability is necessary. Could be $50. It could be $1,000. Whatever it is, something that you both agree on that you're not going to be accountable. Otherwise, I think we need to have accountability for the monies that we spend. Now, the reason I say we should have a slush fund is because in our years of counseling, there's been times when wives have told us that they've had to ask permission for every dollar that they spend. They had to even ask permission of their husbands for their own feminine products and to buy just necessities for the bathroom, necessities for the kitchen. They couldn't spend over so many dollars for groceries without being in serious trouble. That's not a marriage. That's a master servant or master slave relationship, and that's not what marriage is all about. This is why we recommend. I don't care if it's $10 or $100, whatever it is. I call it a slush fund, to where you can you tell your spouse, I don't care, you can spend that any way you want to. It's no issue. When we go over that, the larger purchases for the home or whatever, then we need to discuss that so we're all in agreement. Because again, every disagreement is an opportunity for the enemy to try to come in and cause a conflict. We don't want conflicts. We want to continually build our relationships so we become stronger and stronger all of the time. All right. Number 8, when is our gender roles and sex. This is where it gets exciting now. When we do our seminars, our symposiums, we call them, we say right up front, there's a couple things we need to understand. Number 1, we absolutely require a total confidentiality in what is told in our groups. And number 2, there are no topics off limits. And so we talk about the bedroom, we talk about the living room, we talk about the kitchen. What do I mean by that? The kitchen. We talk about the kitchen. That's where you have your own family and your finances and your own raising your children, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to have to pull a drink here. My throat's getting dry. I'm sure you don't want a dry preacher, so I had to have a little drink to wet my whistle. The living room is where our relationships beyond our immediate family goes out into the in-laws, goes out into the greater area, to the church, goes out into our other outside relationships outside the home. And thirdly, of course, the bedroom. That's the intimate part of marriage. And you need to be very clear to be able to discuss that and have understanding of that. So respect and honor in the bedroom is the bottom line. The scripture tells us the marriage bed is undefiled, but it needs to be within agreed boundaries. We've often tell people that, anything is really permissible in the marriage bed as long as it does not violate your spouse's convictions or their sensibilities and what they feel is right for themselves. Lots of liberty that's there, but there are things that are off limits as far as God is concerned. But at the same time, the scripture is very plain when it says that the marriage bed is undefiled, but it needs to be within agreed upon boundaries. That's the only thing I'm saying is here. People have asked us about all kinds of oral sex and other things. We say, what? I don't believe God says a whole lot about that. Scripture doesn't say a whole lot, although if you look at the Song of Solomon and some of the language that's there, it's very, 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 very intimate, very, very graphic. But the whole point is boundaries. Each one of us has boundaries that we are responsible to maintain. And as a spouse, we do not have the right to override or overrule our spouse's boundaries and whatever those might be. And so this is very, very important for us. And we also we need to, in addition to that, we need to define and share household duties. I'm domestically challenged. I was raised in a family where, because of my Amish roots, there was men's work and there was women's work. And so I never learned how to do anything in the house. I can't cook. I can barely boil water without burning it. So I'm domestically challenged. But, I've had to learn over the years to help in things that I can. I'll just do the odds and ends. I'll do some vacuuming. I'll do odds and end chores that, that I see needs to be done around the house. I take care of the trash. I take care of things like that. And so share the responsibilities, because after all, it is your own nest. It's your home. It's your environment. It's your place of safety and security. We also need to realize and remember that personal value is not determined by perfectionism. You may have been raised a certain way to do things a certain way, and your spouse was raised in a completely different with a different set of values. And you need to be accommodating each other in that, so you can really learn to grow together, so that the two of you can actually formulate and develop your own core set of values. So that's important, that you have personal value is not determined by perfectionism. Number 9, the couple that prays together stays together. This is spirituality. I know that's a catchy little phrase. The couple that prays together stays together. But if you're a Christian, if you and your wife or you and your spouse are Christians, you need to take time to read the scripture together. You need to pray together. You need to be connecting spiritually. You need to discuss spiritual things. You need to discuss your goals, your giftings, your abilities, and share those together. Because as you do that, you'll be strengthened in your own convictions. You'll be strengthened in your own spiritual life. And so you need to. We have talked to many couples who had never pray together. They never have devotions together. They never have a quiet time together. You really don't know what you're missing. You need to take those times where you can discuss the scripture. You can learn from each other. You can say, "Wow, I never saw it quite that way." Your spouse brings a perspective in that you've not seen. You bring a perspective in she's not seen or he's not seen. Wow, never thought of it that way. Well, that's what makes it so much fun and much as a learning process. Now, in doing that, we need to honor God's order in the home. 1 Corinthians 11 makes it very clear what God's order is in the home. And you might be surprised in me saying that yes, the order is God the Father, Jesus the Son, the husband, the wife, the children, and so on. Yes, but I'm not a guy that just says that the husband is always right. No, no, no. I don't believe God ever allows the husband to always be right. Because if we're both seeking the Lord, then you see, as we seek the Lord together, it's a little bit like a triangle. I like to do this way. You got the baseline of the triangle, then you got the apex. Husband's on one side of the baseline, wife is on the other side, God is at the apex. So if you have a difference or you need to learn something, one can be heading toward God, the other go head this way, or you can both go this way, leave God out. But the way to really resolve those things is both of you reach out toward God, and as you do that, you come closer and closer together. So what am I saying? What is God's order in the home? Well, God's priorities, and this is something that I wish I'd have really made more effort for in my earlier years. God's priorities are God, then spouse, then children, then ministry or job. When I was younger, I spent over 25 years traveling. I traveled to 5 continents of the world preaching the gospel of the kingdom. And I missed a lot when our children were young and growing up, and I regret that it was those things that I missed, because I felt I was doing the Lord's will and doing what He called me to do. But boy, if I could do over, I would definitely rearrange some of those priorities, because I had to learn that the kingdom wasn't going to fall apart if I didn't get to every spot that I thought I should be, or if I didn't. Or like I said, sometimes the world's not going to fall apart even if I do. But it really is important that we have the proper priorities. And in the light of that as well, you need to develop personal spirituality. Take some time to be spiritual. Take some time to really develop and read and pray and grow in your own spiritual abilities. Very, very important for you to do that. Number 10 is have regular marriage checkups. Marriage enrichment books and articles are good to read, just to get another perspective, perhaps, and get some insight on what would be very helpful for yourself. Being alert that what you're developing in your marriage, you're passing on to your children as well as your grandchildren as well. You know, children will imitate what they see at home, and that's something that's really, really important to understand. If you have a stressful home, if you have a lot of bickering, if you have tension in your home, your children are going to learn to believe that is really what's normal. That's right. It's not. Harmony, peace. Remember, all relationships are based in pain or pleasure, and cause your home environment to be an environment of pleasure where people enjoy each other, you love each other, you respect each other, you honor each other, you do things together. You're building a unit. That's what's important. And so it's very important in order to do that is that we have honest communication. Honest communication means it's a fulfillment, it's emotionally fulfillment, it's sexual fulfillment, it's environmental fulfillment. It's just simply being together as a family unit, and we're being fulfilled within that family unit. So what I'll also suggest is periodically just check in with somebody. It's a marriage counselor, somebody that maybe has been married longer than you have, and just say, what kind of tips can you give me? What can you encourage me in to really grow in my marriage and so on, grow in my marriage. So those are the 10 basic building blocks that I have here. But also what I like to do, I ask a couple of questions, and I know we're kind of running over a little bit of time what I usually do, but I'll just ask a couple of these questions that we often ask. When was the last time you told your spouse that you loved him or her? We've asked that of couples over the years, and sometimes they'll have to stop and think, let's see. I said, if you got to stop and think about it, something's wrong. Something's missing in your marriage. When was the last time you went for a date together? How about that? When was the last time you learned something new about him or her, especially if you have only been married for a short period of time? Like I said, I've been married 58 years, my wife and I, and we're still learning things of each other. When was the last time you told your spouse a joke and you laughed together? I think that's one of the great things of having a good marriage is being able to laugh together. Lots of things here I could give you. When's the last time you held your spouse's hand at home or in public? When was the last time you told your spouse you love and admire, or what you love and admire about her? When did you last surprise her in some way? When did you make a deliberate connect time? I'm going to close this with this. A good marriage is both a mystery and a miracle. A good marriage depends more on being the right partner than on finding the right partner. We can grow in our relationships. I've done a lot of weddings over the years. I have never found a perfect groom and bride, but I have always challenged them in the marriage relationship and in the wedding ceremony, challenged them to bring out the best in each other. Because remember, the scripture doesn't say to love the person. The scripture doesn't say to marry the person you love, although I think that's important. The scripture says to love the person you've married, and that's even more important. And so I hope these 10 points have been helpful to you. I enjoy working with couples and working with the marriage relationships simply, I guess, because we've been there when things have been rough many, many years ago, the first couple of years of our marriage. And we've also enjoyed the great blessing and the joy of having a great marriage. So thank you for listening. I hope this has been a help to you. I hope it's going to be a blessing to you. And, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button down there and let me know that these videos are meaningful to you, that actually are helping a help to you. I'm talking to a camera, and that camera doesn't give me a whole lot of feedback, but you can. Just a note, just a comment saying, I really appreciate that, or, hey, I didn't care much about that, whatever it is. Until next time, the Lord bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you, and may he be your rear guard. Blessings.